Mary is our mother. When she first encountered Jesus, the angel Gabriel had told her that she was full of grace, that she had found favor with God. And her response was, "I am the handmaid of the Lord. Let it be done unto me according to his will." She submitted herself fully to God's will. And her yes meant something beautiful for us.
Prayer is one way that we get grace, and asking for an increase in those virtues, the ones that she lived so perfectly, so beautifully through her intercession. Can't find a better way to ask for grace to be poured into our life than through prayer and through the intercession of the woman who lived, cooperated with grace so perfectly.
Charity, my friends, is a holy fire in the heart of a man. Charity is the most necessary of all the virtues. Without it, nothing matters. With it, everything becomes worthwhile in the eyes of Almighty God. And the Blessed Virgin Mary possesses this great virtue of charity in the highest and to the most exalted degree.
People who have faith in the shroud as the burial cloth of Christ, but don't understand or don't know the science, when they get to know it and learn it, have more respect for the cloth because of that. Science truly followed and faith well followed blend to form the truth, and the truth is on that cloth.
One possibility, of course, is that we have some unknown man who was scourged, crucified, stabbed with a lance, crowned with thorns, who spent less than 3 days within his burial shroud and bears his image in such a way that it cannot be recreated with all the technology that exists today. Or perhaps, just perhaps, it may be Jesus the Christ.
This is your salvation. This is love in action.
The St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation, in partnership with Patchwork Heart Ministry and Fiat Ministry Network, present a podcast for divorced and separated Catholics.
Hello, and welcome to a podcast from the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. Anne DeSantis here, joined by our board president, Mickey Kelly. Mickey, welcome back again to our 10 Tips for Healing for Adult Children of Divorce podcast series.
Hello, Anne. Great to be back.
Yes, it's great to be back. We're on episode number 9 already. And if some of you have not listened to the other ones that we did in the series, I just encourage you, because we made a point on each of the different ways that you can find help and healing, especially if you are the adult child of divorce. And may I start out by saying, when we say adult child of divorce, we're talking about someone who's at least over the 18 or over, because there's a whole different realm of healing for children, for teens, preteens, and children. So we're talking about people that are a little bit older. So let's just start talking about the topic, Mickey. So number 9 is finding a support group, or even starting a support group if needed, to help you to find healing. I didn't know if you had any words of wisdom on that topic.
Well, and honestly, I think every parish should have a support group. You see some for those that lost a child or a spouse, from illness, addiction, drugs. Oftentimes too, we also see groups that like try to, bring some of the families, like young families with little children together, like after mass, like once a week over coffee, donuts, and orange juice, and for like moments of fellowship. I really think that for divorce, I mean, if thankfully, with Pope Francis, he's been kind of trying to hinder the stigma that surrounds it in the Catholic Church. I mean, granted, half of Catholic marriages do end in divorce, and it's very unfortunate that that has to happen. But if you have to look at it this way, these people need the support just as much as those who are going through drugs or alcohol addictions need supports as much as these people who were experience some type of hurt, damage from a broken marriage.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad you brought up the Pope, because it really is true. I do think that through some of his papal writings and through some of his homilies and just his charism, is that he doesn't want people to feel afraid to find help, because all of us, I underline, all of us have gone through some kind of a traumas, tragedies, challenges in life, aside from divorce, right? Or being the adult child of divorce. So I know that it might be challenging to find something like specifically an adult children of divorce in-person group. And admittedly, through our foundation, the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation, because we're kind of like on an online ministry, like 95%, we don't supply at this point at like an in-person one. But what we could do is just talk to you on this podcast about the importance of attending support groups, because you might be able to go to a support group for grieving or loss. That could even help as well. People who are grieving a loss, it could be also the loss of relationships. And so some of these ideas are things that you could take not only to a Catholic divorce, the adult children of divorce support group, but also just to any general support group. So admittedly, I found these tips on a secular site. It's from a psychologist by the name of David Sussman, PhD. But I do think that the tips that he's offering, which are like general tips for why support groups are helpful, is something that we can like bring to the table in terms of our Catholic faith. So the article is entitled 9 Benefits of Support Groups. And I thought we could just kind of go through all of them, even if like, just talk about a little at a time on this half-hour podcast. The first one is realizing that you're not alone. And he says it's interesting to hear people describe their first support group meeting. They will often say, until I went to the group, I thought I was the only person in the world with my problem. I was surprised to find that everyone in the group had some of the same issues as me. This realization usually brings about a feeling of relief by gaining understanding for perhaps the very first time in their life that others have similar concerns and are there to help and encourage you. So I think that's important. Now, even if you do something small, like maybe a group of young people or young adults who are affected by divorce, there's nothing wrong with starting something on your own, or maybe meeting online or doing something like that and just talking. So, Mickey, I didn't know if you wanted to share that whole idea of realizing you're not alone. I think is a very important factor.
Yes, and I mean, I feel like too, like people think that, some people are like, I feel like the problem with many people in the parishes, and I kind of seen it firsthand with someone, I don't want to say who it is, like for the sake of charity, but you bring up a good point, Anne. There are people out there that think that they are alone, but when they go to these groups, it's going to be a shock. They're going to realize, oh, wait, you know what? I'm not alone on this. It's like, with us, and we think we're the only Catholics who are practicing, but when we go to these events together, we're not alone at all. It's, it's refreshing to see that. And, you have opportunity to network with these people and, form, amazing friendships with these people.
Yeah, that's a good point. Whenever we do events, Mickey and I sometimes do some Catholic events where we have an exhibitor table and we get to talk to people. And of course, me and my job as executive director, where I get to field calls and emails, I'm seeing that there's so many people that are going through some kind of crises. And one of those crises is being the adult child of divorce, because, our parents get divorced, but sometimes those issues and those problems don't get resolved the way that the families communicate, the way that we communicate with other people, the way that we live our lives. So I think it's important. I have to also bring up real quickly at the beginning of this podcast 2 ministries that help adult children of divorce. One is Life Giving Wounds, and I would just Google that on your computer, or I believe it's lifegivingwounds.org if I'm correct. But they do a lot with adult children of divorce. They have all kinds of retreats and outreach and blogs, and also Restored Ministry with Joey Pontarelli, who is constantly doing podcasts and blogs for adult children of divorce. So reach out to those ministries as well, because, we all work together to try to supply support for you, those who are the adult children. The next point in my article here that I'm reading for the 9 benefits of a support group is to express your feelings. And it says, after you realize you're not alone and within a safe and supportive environment, you begin to feel comfortable sharing your feelings and life circumstances with a group. This can be a very therapeutic and healing experience, particularly as you find that others in the group will listen non-judgmentally and will praise you for your openness and courage. I think that's true, whether it's something like Alcoholics Anonymous, whether it's something to do with, losing a loved one, a grieving support group. I mean, a lot of times when you express yourself, people don't tell you to stop talking. I mean, they want to hear your stories. So I think that's important too. Mickey, I didn't know if you wanted to share on that.
Well, and we have done this time and time again. We've shared our stories, and I think every story in a support group matters. Because first off, I mean, I think metaphorically speaking, like you and I have gone to pro-life rallies, and we've heard from, once in a while, we hear from these moms that were courageous enough, like they were once pro-choice or pro-abortion, and now they decided to advance the cause of life. And some of them shared their stories of how the choice they made, it haunts them for the rest of their lives. I mean, we know of one person, like where we live, like she shared how, she regret that decision, and now she's one of the best assets the pro-life movement has in the greater Philly area. And I think too, looking at, for the topic of this podcast, I mean, everyone does get divorced for whatever reasons there are. And we have to really understand that the story matters and they need to be heard.
Yeah, good thinking. The story does matter. Thanks for sharing that, because it's talking about the pro-life movement too. There's all different kinds of areas of crisis, traumas, and adversities that we go through. And right on our website, it says that one of those crises is anything to do with pro-life. And so we want to just put that out there, that we're always there for people who have been affected by abortion or something to do with life issues. So number 3 in this article says learning helpful information. It says support groups offer lots of practical tips and resources for dealing with identifying concerns, and members share their success stories and their strategies that help them move forward in their recovery. Some groups focus on learning and practicing specific coping skills. Many groups will also provide recommendations for useful books and websites for additional study apart from the group meetings. I think that's so true with any support group. They usually have some kind of leaflets, pamphlets, website information, something that will help to guide you, and I just say to all of you that are listening, those 2 ministries that I mentioned to you, Life Giving Wounds and Joey Pontarelli's ministry, which is Restored Ministry, and then of course us at nonnatus.org, there's always going to be all kinds of extra resources. So let's talk about that, Mickey. What do you think? Why is it important for support groups to offer those resources?
And like any support group, there needs to be these resources that must be accessible. to others. You know, for us, people need to know about our ministry. So I think one of the biggest steps in support groups, in addition to telling your story, is to be willing to seek that healing. And I understand healing does take time. Well, I mean, granted, like every time you get a cut or a bruise, or an injury, it does take time to heal. But for us, when it comes to mental or spiritual, inflictions, those take time, and they're not gonna heal like, overnight, or like there's no magic portion or anything like that out there. But I think the part of the healing is you tell the stories, let alone the fact we have to seek the resources that are needed that will point us in the right direction.
Yeah, that's right. It's very important because sometimes we need help to go in the right direction. It's so true. Number 4 on this list, and again, I want to give credit to the author. The website is davidsussman1s.com. It's the advantages for mental health, 9 benefits for support groups. And what he says underneath number 4 is improving social skills. He says, by meeting and talking with other group members, you have a chance to practice social skills and interact more effectively with others. Often when people are dealing with, illness, mental illness or addictions or other things, they need that support. So it's so important. Now, I know that we're not talking about addictions or mental health. Maybe we are talking in some instances about mental health, but it does help us to improve our social skills when we go to a support group, because we have to learn how to kind of articulate ourselves when we're being asked to share. When you go to a support group, though, remember, you don't have to share. It's always an optional thing. But I do think that it certainly helps when you can have those opportunities to share. Mickey, have you ever had opportunities like that where you were able to share? I know you've done it on this podcast. Do you think that's a helpful thing for others?
Absolutely. Now, granted, maybe at the first meeting when you first go to it, may not be comfortable at first, but I think if you just give it time, eventually you may want to open up. But in the long shot, you still have to go to these, meet people, learn from each other. And if you're ready, just go right in.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it takes time to decide if you even want to go to a support group. And of course, for adult children of divorce, it's not going to be an easy thing to find an in-person one, right? But like I said, sometimes the support groups that are for people who are grieving also can be helpful for someone who's an adult child of divorce, because that would also come under that category. But like I said, I put it out there to all of you that maybe a few friends that in your area, because I do think there's a benefit to in-person. That's something that, you could even do. It doesn't always have to be something that's through an organization, but just an opportunity to share with friends, talking openly, and having, there's got to be some kind of structure, a little bit of structure to it. But if you would like to do something like that, please reach out to us at the foundation, because we'd be happy to help you with giving you some guidelines in terms of developing one. Let's go on to number 5, and that's gaining hope. It says it's very powerful when you see others in the group who are further along the road to recovery and who have made great strides toward happier and healthier lives. These positive role models show you that recovery is in fact attainable, which brings renewed hope for the future. Hope is what it's all about. We as Catholics, that's what, we kind of live for that, right? Because our hope is in heaven. Our hope is in Jesus and in our faith. Mickey, I didn't know if you want to share on that, because it says here that striding toward happier and healthier lives, that is a goal for every Catholic, isn't it? It really is a goal that we be healthier and happier, and also striving toward sainthood every day.
Well, honestly, Anne, sainthood should be our goal in life. And, we only have one life to live. And, sometimes we have to ask ourselves, like, how do we want to be defined as? with this earth. And granted, everything that surrounds us temporarily, but what's next is forever. And I think what's very important to really consider too, for all people, is that our faith should be the center of our lives. It should come first. And there are some ways that help, nurture that faith, in addition to daily prayers and going to mass, what have you. But also we need to find those people that are we willing to that can help us build us up and help us to strive for the goal in life, and that is sainthood. I always think of in the Acts of the Apostles where St. Peter, after he was freed by the angel sent from heaven after his captivity, he surrounded, of course, well, let's face it, the apostles were pretty much brothers, and they all built each other up. It was like a fraternity. And eventually many of the secret disciples of Jesus would follow their lead and what have you. They would start forming more of those people. But they all stuck together, no matter how everything was going. In the end, when we foster these holy friendships, it's going to pay dividends on our faith journey. And we need to strive for those saintly friendships. Look at some of the saints in the church. Many of them were either roommates, they were, friends, they were workers, whatever the case is. We need more of that. In addition to married couples or siblings or, whatever the case is. But bottom line, holy friendships are going to help us with not just accountability, but also the spiritual challenges that we're going to need in order to obtain the glories of heaven.
So well said. Thank you so much. Yeah, important, because we always need to, I'm listing off all these benefits of support groups, but we need to kind of combine not only these kinds of tips, but faithful tips too. So it's kind of a combination of both, what is good for our mental health. Really, we all have a mental health and it is important. And also like our spirituality and God's will for our lives, right? So it's kind of a combination of both. I'm going to kind of put the last four together in 2 points, just for time's sake here. So number 6 and 7, I'll read 6 and 7, are reducing distress. It says as you work through various issues and concerns in the group, it's common that you'll begin to notice a reduced level of distress and comfort. This is a positive sign that progress is being made and that you are feeling better. That's important. And number 7, increase self-understanding. It says as you learn more effective ways to cope and handle different situations, you gain better understanding about yourself, your needs, and your own unique personality. You can also gain increased insight about the factors that have contributed to your current challenges and the strategies that seem to work best to help you move toward your goal, which of course our goal here is healing, right? So let's talk about that, Mickey. So the points are reducing distress and increasing your self-understanding as one of the benefits to these support groups.
And I think that the end game of every support group is healing, as you mentioned. And if we don't seek healing now, it's going to have a lot of repercussions, on our health. And it's not good for you to have to pass on these hurts and inflict those hurts to others, whether it's physical or mental. I mean, part of our humanity is to experience brokenness. But at the same time, we have to seek the healing that is needed.
Yeah, seeking healing is important. I would just add on that note that healing is not a once and done, okay? At least for me, it hasn't been. maybe for somebody else listening, it is. But healing is an ongoing process for all of us, I believe. And healing really, I think my own personal definition, even from my reading and research, is we realize that we do live in a sinful world, but with the help of the Lord every day in our prayer life and in our faith and acceptance, is that we can move on in faith, right? So it's not a magic wand that's going to make all your problems go away. It's not going to make other people behave differently. It's not going to make your family be perfect. But what it is going to do is help you to have the strength to be a better person with God's help and with your virtue and moving on in faith. So with that said, I'm going to read the last two on the list here for our 9 benefits of support groups is helping others. It says, just as you benefit from the group experience, you can also help other group members as you grow and make progress. Others will be affected positively by hearing your success and by your kind and caring demeanor. You also notice you feel better when you're able to help someone else. Many groups will explicitly include the goal of helping others as a central component of the group's mission. That is so important. And then number 9, affordability. I think that's a really important one. It says one additional advantage of support groups is that they are very affordable. A lot of times they're free. In fact, many are free, and all typically will be cheaper than individual therapy sessions. That is a major thing, I think, because a lot of people who go to support groups, let's face it, I mean, therapy is expensive. And especially if you want to get like Christian or Catholic therapy, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing, and I highly recommend it. But sometimes insurance doesn't cover that. So you do have to find a way to pay for it. Even though there are sliding scales and different things, it's all worth the money. But let's face it, as you say, Mickey, it is, these support groups are a better deal. You can get more for your money, and also the healing, the listening, the guidance might be there too. So before we end, did you have any, like, if you wanted to expand, Mickey, on those last two? So the last two are helping others and affordability.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, support groups, they're not that expensive at all. I mean, let's face it, seeking counseling is, but I think support groups is probably a good start if you want to go the cheap way for the time being. But if you think there's something more to it, then definitely go to counseling. I mean, it would change your life. And I think the other thing to keep in mind too is that, just like when you're watching others grow, like through the support group, that would motivate you to grow as well. And then you would do, the same thing. It's like, I kind of think of it as, like someone that's like a 4-year athlete in high school or college too, any sport given. They come on as a rookie, and they have the seniors and they watch them how they play, and then they go on to graduate. Sophomore year, they're grade up, and there's like freshmen that come in for the sport, and they watch you develop, and not only you be mentored by that class, the seniors right there, but you also mentor, say, the freshmen. Become a junior, then another group of freshmen come in, and you probably mentor them. Now, when senior year is really the fun part, all the underclassmen will look up to you, and they watch you. They also see the growth of you, and then after that final game, it's like that last hurrah. It's like it motivates. So each time every year, basically, you grow, and that's what the support groups want you to do. You grow, just like the student athlete that grows from freshman year to senior year. The end game, the bottom line, it helps you to grow spiritually. Let alone the fact, too, it will help you seek out the people who are not alone in this hurt or this tragedy that has happened. These support groups will help change your perspective and even gain something more insightful as your journey continues.
Thank you for those words of wisdom. So true. So true. I mean, we're all on a journey, right? And like I said, I believe that all of us are always finding more and more healing in our lives as we go along. And so whether it's, adult children or divorce or whatever that is, I just want to recap again those 9 points. They're realizing you're not alone, expressing your feelings, learning helpful information, improve social skills, gaining hope, reducing stress, increase self-understanding, helping others, and affordability. So they're important. Again, the article is called 9 Benefits of Support Groups by davidsussman.com. And as I said, he is a secular site, but with very good insight about people who are looking to find the benefits of support groups. Again, please do reach out to us if you have any questions on this. Our website is nonnatus.org. And Mickey, any final words before we end?
The best advice I could say right now is, go to Mass, take a bulletin, and reach out to any support groups, find out about their meeting, or also keep in touch with someone that's in charge of it.
Amen. Thank you so much. Now, this is episode 9. Guess what? Next month is episode 10 of 10 tips for healing for adult children of divorce. You don't want to miss that one. It premieres the first Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Philly Nonnatus YouTube channel. Please do subscribe. God bless everyone, and we will see you all here next month with the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. For more information about the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation, visit nonnatus.org or email director.srnf@gmail.com.
Mary is our mother. When she first encountered Jesus, the angel Gabriel had told her that she was full of grace, that she had found favor with God. And her response was, "I am the handmaid of the Lord. Let it be done unto me according to his will." She submitted herself fully to God's will. And her yes meant something beautiful for us.
Prayer is one way that we get grace, and asking for an increase in those virtues, the ones that she lived so perfectly, so beautifully through her intercession. Can't find a better way to ask for grace to be poured into our life than through prayer and through the intercession of the woman who cooperated with grace so perfectly.
Charity, my friends, is a holy fire in the heart of a man. Charity is the most necessary of all the virtues. Without it, nothing matters. With it, everything becomes worthwhile in the eyes of Almighty God. And the Blessed Virgin Mary possesses this great virtue of charity in the highest and to the most exalted degree.